Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is practice sort of finishing off factorising once we know a factor. It's easy with these first two quadratics. The cubics get more interesting, so I'm just going to take you through a couple, and then I'm going to give you a bunch to do. Okay, so for the first one, the 2x squared comes from the x times something. Excuse me. Right, I need my pen. The 2x squared comes from the x times something. So what's that something going to be? It's going to be 2x, isn't it? Now the minus 3 comes from the minus 3 times the number on the end, so it must be 1, so we can fill that in. And then all we need to do then is, and it must be a plus, all we need to do then is just check that the x's in the middle work out correctly. So, didn't mean to do that. So let's just get rid of these lines for a minute. Checking where the x's come from. Well, where do the x's come from when I expand this? They come from that x times the 1, which is 1x, from the minus 3 times the 2x, which is minus 2x. So I do get minus 5x, so everyone's a winner. Happy days. So that's my answer there, at factorised. Do breathe there. Right, this next one, same sort of deal. X times something is x squared, so that must be x. Minus 7 times something is minus 84, so that must be plus 12. We all know our 12 times table, don't we? And then we can just check that the x term works out okay, and we do that with minus 7x and plus 12x, so that is plus 5x. Job's a good one. Okie dokie. So moving on. Alright, ignoring the children screaming in the background. Moving swiftly on. It gets more interesting with the cubics. So this linear expression here is going to have to times by a quadratic to make this cubic. So there's going to be 3 terms. So two things are easy to figure out. The x squared that goes in the front, because that has to times by the x to give you x cubed. The 2 times the number at the end will make minus 6, so that must be minus 3. And it gets more interesting in the middle. So we now need to figure out how many x is in this quadratic. So we've got 2 bits of evidence, so we'll be able to do it with one of them and then check it with the other one. Let's look at that. Let's look at the x squareds. Where, when I expand these brackets, will x squareds come from? If you look back at your examples from earlier, you can see that they come from doing the number in this bracket times the x squared there. So I get 2x squared, and from the x term here times the x term there. So if I want 3x squareds total, and I've got 2x squared so far, this must be a single x to give me the other x squared that I want. Okay, so the x squareds work out fine, and then I can check it with the x term because I haven't used that at all yet. So where does this minus x come from? Well, I get the 2 times the x, which is plus 2x, and I get x times minus 3, which is minus 3x. So when I expand that and simplify, that will work out to the thing above. So I'm happy I'm correct. So as I've been saying about other about quadratics, we're always going to be checking by expanding. And for me, I've checked by expanding because I've gone along there. If you want to check again, then that's all good. Right, this last one then, you might stop this and have a go, or you can just follow it with me as you go if you like. So we can take the same approach. X times something is x cubed, so that must be x squared. 5 times something is the 5, so that must be plus 1. And then we can think about the x squareds or the x's, doesn't matter which. Let's focus on the x squareds. There need to be 4, but at the moment, hopefully you can see there are 5, because I've got 5x squareds there, so this x times that x term in there needs to give me minus an x squared, so I'll put minus x in there, and then that makes the x squareds work out, if you imagine that by expanding. Let's check about the minus 4x, where does that come from? Do I get that correctly? And the x's come from x times plus 1, which is plus an x, and the 5 times minus x, which is minus 5x, so yes, that all works out great. Just for kicks, I'm going to show you another way you could do that using a table. So if I'd written out my original question, I've got the x and the plus 5 there, and I know that I need to get x cubed, so that needs to come from an x squared. I need to get a 5, so that needs to come from a 5 times a 1, okay. I can fill in the other bits that I'm going to get from those, so I get 5x from the 5 times, no I don't, brain fart. I get 1 times x there, and I get 5 times x squared there, so I get 5x squared. So this bit here will need to be an x term, and it needs to times by this x over here to give me some x squareds that will all together with the 5x squared make the 4x squared that I've got over there. So that must be minus an x squared. So how do I get minus an x squared by timesing x by something? It must be minus x, and I can fill in the other bit, minus 5x, and I can check that that gives me the number of x's that I want, which it does. Okay, it's the same thing, it's just written out in a grid. Cool. So